Hey guys, I got home a little late, so I'm just going to throw together a very fast batch of fried rice. I'm still learning this whole live streaming thing, so bear with me as I get through the technical details. But I learned from one a couple nights ago, put up a sign to tell people what you're doing. So fried rice. And also, if you were watching a couple nights ago, this is what my bread finally turned out. I stopped the stream before I got it finished baked, which is a good thing because my power went out right at the end of baking. I wouldn't have been able to show it to you anyway. We had a blizzard going on here, but this is what's left of the bread. I eat about half a loaf a day. Nice crust all the way around in that dark pan. Nice tight crumb. Baked and springed well, but this is 2-day-old bread now. We'll make fabulous bread, toast, and sandwiches and such, but I thought I'd show it to you if you're a returning viewer. But otherwise, the only real trick with making fried rice is to use good rice and to make sure it's cooked in a way that the kernels or the grains don't stick together. I do a couple things. One, I'm using yesterday's rice. I cooked this yesterday, ate with my red beans and rice, and this is just leftover. So by chilling it for a day, the grains usually break apart easier. And as I said in my other video, try a couple different brands of rice. Brand and price correlations, permutations I should say, really will end up giving you a rice that does and doesn't work. I for years used the same brand of rice, and I noticed it was a little bit more difficult to get the grains to separate. Tried another brand that was even cheaper just on a whim, and it was much better rice. This rice is $1.25 Canadian for a kilo. Tastes good still. So it doesn't have to be super high dollar basmati from faraway lands. It can be a cheap rice, but there's no rhyme or reason to getting a good one versus a bad one when you're just looking at the price tag. So just get a bag and test them. It's never going to be bad. It's just whether or not the kernels separate. The other little trick is I always put in a couple tablespoons of oil in the pot while I'm making it, whether I'm using my rice cooker like I did here or manual on the stove. So a couple tablespoons of oil seems to help keep the grains separate. Kind of the same trick that you use when you're making risotto. When you start risotto, you coat all the grains in oil. That's to help keep them from clumping together into a mess. But anyway, I am making fried rice with whatever I got laying around because I didn't get to the market today. That blizzard kind of was unexpected. Late season blizzard kind of threw us all off, and I just didn't feel like getting into the market, so I didn't. Get this onion peeled. Well, this onion's being difficult. Being the frugal cook I am, all of these vegetable trimmings will get turned into stock. I've talked about that a couple times on my channel. I think I've got another half onion around here somewhere. I do. I've got 1.5 onions left there. I almost got 2 full onions in there, but sadly I just realized that I don't have any fresh garlic, which sucks because fresh garlic and fresh ginger. Fresh garlic, fresh ginger are absolutely critical for making fried rice. I say critical, but I'm going to make it without ginger tonight and fake it with another trick. Because I have to, because I didn't go to the grocery store. Those outer husks of garlic don't really add much, so I go ahead and throw them in the compost. But, oddly enough, these little tiny end bits that I get off the root add a lot to my stock bowl. So I always make sure and save all those little trim ends. And I'll even show you here. These are all my vegetable trimmings from the last 3 or 4 days. About every 4 or 5 days, I will take this bowl and put it in a big pot, cover it with water, make vegetable stock. I always have a use for vegetable stock around my house. But, you know, use your judgment. Like, these chili stems are not going to add anything, so I just toss them away. But if I was to cut open and take out the seeds like I did with the green pepper, that will add flavor. So choose accordingly. Let's see. Let me go grab some of the veg. Here's the orange marmalade I made the other night. And I'm actually going to use some of that in my fried rice. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But I got a few pieces of cauliflower left and some celery stalk and a carrot. We got more than enough to make fried rice here. A lot of times people will put in all kinds of stuff, you know, sausage and lapchang, 5 different vegetables, just all kinds of craziness in their fried rice. And that is delicious, but it's absolutely not necessary. Fried rice is absolutely a dish of opportunity, whatever you got laying around. Grab a... Where is my vegetable peeler? Aha! And speaking of stock making, vegetable scraps in stock making, carrot peels, lots and lots of flavor in your carrot peels. Do not throw them away. When I boil that pot full of vegetable scraps, I throw in a very tiny spoonful of a secret ingredient. What secret ingredient, you ask? I'll tell you in a second. I've already told you in a couple other videos, but you'll just have to wait because I want to show it to you. Just get these root ends. I am not going to fine dice these onions, so I don't need to leave the root end on. I'm just going to make nice big fat chunks, so grab my trimmings bowl again. Nothing goes to waste in this house. But speaking of lots of other things in your fried rice, a lot of times, like I say, people will put sausages or other kinds of meat in there. For my protein, I'm just going to use an egg. Put an egg in there, and that's a lot of beautiful protein for you. Quick and easy and painless, and really, really cheap too. I get my eggs from the local egg lady for I think $2.50 a dozen, which is awesome because I know the chickens are very happy. Happy chickens make happy eggs. So you guys will have to pardon me when I walk away. This is really live. The whole point of my channel is that I'm doing food as you would do it at home. I'm not editing out mistakes. I'm not having everything pre-measured in a bowl. I get that there's some really great cooks and really great recipes like that out there on YouTube, but it's not how most people cook. I'm going for that whole unfiltered look. Reality TV cooking, maybe. This is a Canadian garlic press. Even though it looks mysteriously like a Canadian hockey puck, it is a garlic basher. You bash it and the skins pop off a whole lot easier. One of my best. I always take, whenever I go visit friends in other countries, I always take a bag of hockey pucks with me because they're solid as a rock, right? But easily washable. So I think you get a bag of 10 of them for $3 up here. Cheap presents to give to people, and everybody always gets a kick out of it because it's such a Canadian thing. And yes, I really am going to use this much garlic because I am a garlic fiend. And there's that one's not coming out because there's a little nib left on there. But I'm going to temper this garlic down. I'm going to make a garlic oil. Rather than using a garlic chili sauce, I'm going to use a pretty good amount of oil and those 2 hot Thai chilies you see there with all that garlic in there and make my own sauce ahead of time. If I can get all the garlic out of here. I don't have a hot date, so it doesn't matter what my breath smells like after this. There we go. If you guys have questions, speak up. I can see the screen from here, although I don't look over there every second, but I can see it. So if you guys have any questions, just type them in. Whenever I'm cooking Chinese, I always make sure and have some water nearby. That's kind of a... If you've ever seen a Chinese restaurant, they've got the big, huge, blazing hot woks, and they usually have a water spigot over there because adding splashes of water always an important part of the technique. They actually have some leftover, I think these are alfalfa sprouts. No, I think these are radish sprouts. I've got some leftover radish sprouts in the fridge that need using up, so I'm going to go ahead and use them as well. And now I need to get some oil. I'm just going to use vegetable oil, canola oil. Let me go grab that bottle. And you'll notice that I am not using a wok. If I was over on my regular stove with a big high-power gas burner underneath it, I probably would use my beautiful wok that I've had since the dawn of time. But for you guys on the camera over here on the induction burner, I'm going to use my flat bottom pan. It's a relatively shallow pan, but that's okay. We've got more surface area in contact with the heat, which isn't really wok cooking. The whole concept of wok cooking is that you've got an intensely hot little spot down at the very bottom, just a little disc of incredibly high heat. And then as you work up, you know, let me grab my wok real quick. If I can get it off the rack. Yeah, so if I was cooking on a wok, this spot right down here would be super, super heat from the flame, for either a gas flame or even almost a torch-like flame. And so it'd be really hot in here, and you cook food as you pass the food through the hot spot and then up on the cool sides. So cooler up here, gets hotter and hotter, and things kind of flash fry as they go through from the hot spot to the cold spot, right? But you can't achieve that on a flat burner, whether it's induction or an electric coil, something like that. So you have to switch to a dry pan. And that's okay. You'll still get it cooked, especially for something like this where there's no meat in there. Not a problem. Get everything reassembled before I destroy the pot rack. Kind of hangs over the computer monitor, so I don't want to. Got to be extra careful in that case. Now I don't want this garlic to burn, so it's not going in any time at the start. I want to buffer it, but I do need to get that heat, that oil up to heat first. And I'm just going to knock big fat chunks of this garlic out. Doesn't need to be crushed. Almost treating the garlic like a vegetable. And you can see some of my garlic is already starting to sprout. That's kind of why I want to get through it. Spring is coming and the garlic knows it, so time to use up all that from the garden last year. Of course, I will save some. I should say that if you have garlic sprouting in your cupboard and a place to plant it, you really should have planted it last fall, but you can still get away with planting it right now. Garlic needs kind of a cold shock to get it growing. So if you've got one doing this number on you, this should have gone in the ground last fall, but you can still put it in the ground right now. It'll still get 4 or 6 weeks of cold weather, and it will come right up and turn into a plant, and you harvest it in, late September up here, early October, maybe even sooner if you're in a warmer climate. Grow your own garlic. Super simple. You don't have to do anything to it while it grows. It just kind of does its thing in the garden, and at the end, when the green parts fall over and die off, that's when you pull it up from the ground. So, getting my chilies ready here. I'm only using 2, and that should tell you something. I am a big fan of heat. And the fact that I'm only using 2 here should tell you how hot these chilies are. I don't know where we got them from in my corner of Canada this time of year, but this batch is blazing hot, that's for sure. I want big, fat chunks of onion here, so not fine at all. I don't know if I'm going to use all of this onion. I probably will, but something like that. Don't have any green onions, otherwise I'd use them too, but to say this is opportunistic fried rice. It's just whatever you got laying around. Yeah, I'm going to use that much. The rest of that can wait. A couple little cauliflower florets that were just kind of laying around. I'm going to go ahead and slice them down. When I cut my cauliflower, I always leave a little bit of the stem on each piece, and that will keep it from dissolving and disintegrating like it tends to do sometimes. Also, if you've never tried roasting broccoli or cauliflower, if you cut it flat, toss it with some oil, put the flat side down on a preheated sheet pan, you get awesome color on the bottom of your cauliflower that way, and put it under the roaster. Roasted cauliflower and broccoli both will really change your opinion of those two vegetables. Okay, got my heat on nice and low, and I'm going to put all of this garlic out. I need to go grab my my spatula real quick. So all of this garlic and chili is going to go in, but I want to really keep it moving so I don't burn that garlic. And then as soon as I can really kind of smell it in this oil, probably, what, 30 seconds at most, I want to get these onions in, because adding the onions and the moisture from the onions will keep that garlic from burning. But I'm on 2 out of 6 here on the heat, so do it nice and easy. I can already smell it. I could probably throw it in right now, but burnt garlic, not a good thing. Err to the side of caution here. I used to make fried rice in college all the time because it's literally anything you got laying around. I don't think we were supposed to have hot plates in the dorm, but I was a rebel. I was a cooking rebel even back then. Okay, I can really smell that now, so in go the onions. I say that the moisture that you're adding via those onions will keep things from burning too much. So now I can go up another notch on my heat. And the cauliflower is ready to go in. Let's get some celery action going here next. In this case, I don't want the celery to disintegrate, so I'm going to keep the piece size reasonably large, but not so big that you get a bitter taste. If I had water chestnuts or daikon, something like that, I'd use those here, but again, not that easy to come by in March in eastern Canada, so I'm baking it with the celery. And that takes a nice long time to cook, so it can go ahead and go in. Carrot. See what we got here. A little bit of a bad spot on the carrot there. You do 2 things when you're cooking Asian style. One, you add the things that need to cook the longest in first. which means everything finishes at the right time. And along those same lines, you cut things that need more time to cook, like this hard carrot. You cut them smaller, and so smaller cuts obviously cook quicker. So there you go. As I say, in this case, since I'm not over blazing high heat trying to cook meat, a little bit more room for error with an all vegetable fried rice. How was everybody's daylight savings time Sunday today? I wish they'd stop with the crazy daylight savings stuff. It helps nobody anymore. Didn't they start daylight savings time back because it was helping the farming families, like the kids could go to school later and they could still get up and help with the farm? There was some kind of farming correlation, if I remember correctly, to the whole logic behind daylight savings time. These days you got one farmer with a satellite GPS controlled tractor who can farm, 1,000 acres. So we've come a long way in that department. Problem with tossing in this pan is that, one, I've raised the platform up so I'm kind of up high, but two, when I pull it off the heat, it makes this silly beeping noise to tell me that the pan is off the heat. I know it's off the heat, I just took it off. Poor design on the burner there, but I had to crack the thing open and put a piece of tape over the alarm. It was so loud. Drove me nuts. Okay, so vegetables going. Let me go ahead and put the cauliflower in there. It's not the best color combination. I wish I had something green to go in there, but we'll fake it. We'll get there. And I want you to notice that I am not covering this, because if I covered this, it would certainly cook, but I'd be steaming rather than frying. And I want that color. I want the high heat kind of cooking rather than the slow, moist heat kind of cooking with steam. There are other Asian dishes that I would absolutely steam, or if I had started with meat in there and I wanted to finish cooking the meat a little bit more before I went in with vegetables, then yeah, I would certainly use a cover and conserve that steam. But in this case, not necessary. Got some soy sauce. I think I've got some, actually got a little bit of mint over here in my herb planters. Let me go grab that. It is absolutely not a substitute for the ginger that I should have had, but a little tiny bit of fresh chopped mint will add a little something something in there, so kind of faking it. Not really any spices. The soy is going to give me plenty of spice in there. I'm going to use a spoonful of my orange marmalade, because some people would add sugar. Some people would add palm sugar or muscovado sugar, something along those lines. And that's fine. You can leave it out completely too, but I like just a little bit of sweetness, and maybe it's a leftover from having orange chicken or something. I've always liked a little tiny hint of orange flavor in my fried rice, so I'm just going to use a quick spoonful of my orange marmalade when I get to it. Also, I've got a little bit of toasted sesame oil. You've got to go real easy with this stuff because you can overpower with flavor in a hurry. Tiny little bit of toasted sesame oil, and then, of course, as I say, I'm going to get my egg in there. Think of what else I've got in the fridge that would go in. You'll notice also that I'm doing everything before the rice goes in. The rice goes in almost at the end because all you're really doing is reheating the rice. You're not cooking it at all. Just looking for some color, starting to get a tiny little bit. Oh, I need to get a bowl too, actually. And now that I've got everything mixed in, I can go all the way up and really get it going. As I say, the main reason to start on low temperature is so that that garlic doesn't burn. But now that we've got enough liquid out into the dish, that garlic should be fine. And I know it looked like a lot of oil that went in there at the start, but since I don't have any meat in here, the dish really needs that fat. The rice really needs that fat component in there. So if I was using, half a chicken breast or a little bit of pork or something like that, I would ease up on the oil and I'd start the meat in the oil so that whatever fat it had would render out, and I'd probably end up with the same net amount of oil. But for a vegetarian like this, be a little more generous with the oil. That was probably 3 tablespoons at the start, maybe even 4 if I'm honest about it. Go ahead and put my rice in here. And when I got my rice ready to go, I went through and just made sure, since it's day-old rice, I made sure that any clumps were broken up. It's ready to go there. Now, I could put in something like a tiny little bit of 5-spice, but quite frankly, I think that overpowers a little bit too much in this case. But I am going to take a tiny little bit of fennel, which is one of the spices in 5-spice, and put in just a few tiny crushed bits. Now, I prefer to have some texture left to it, so that's why I'm using my good old-fashioned mortar and pestle here. That's about what I want there. And to make sure that the flavor blooms out of this, I want to get over here to a little corner where I've got some oil. I want to make sure that this spice hits the oil. The oil soluble flavors in the spice will bloom out that way. If I was just to put it in straight or try to do it in water, it wouldn't give me nearly as much oomph for the flavor profile there. So always bloom, when appropriate, bloom your spices in oil. Not all spices are oil soluble, but most are. So that little tiny bit of fennel will go a long way. If I want to do the other, I could do star anise, I could do Szechuan peppercorn, I could do even cinnamon, to put all the individual spices, all 5-spice in there. But for this, I just know from experience that a little bit of fennel is fine. That'll give me the flavor. And again, normally I'd have ginger in here as well, which would be more than enough. But I can, even just that little bit, that was what, a 1/4 teaspoon, I can really smell that fennel coming through now. Okay. About time to make the quote-unquote sauce. I think those are just about where I want. See, I'm getting a little bit of color on the bottom edge, which is perfect, but I don't want to cook them in the mush. So those are pretty much ready to go. Let me go ahead and put my little tiny bit of mint in here. A little bit of acid. You could use vinegar, you could use whatever you want. I just got some lemon juice left over in here, so tiny little bit of lemon juice to brighten it up. And now, in goes the rice. Get that out, and then remember, we're not really cooking the rice, we're just heating it through. And then once it's heated through, I'm going to turn it all and quote-unquote fry it, hence the name fried rice. Just a little tiny bit of fried rice frying action at the end after the rice has gone in. The egg goes in at the very last. Ooh, yeah, that's plenty hot. Go in with just a little bit of my, let me grab a little bowl here. I'm going to take my little spoonful of orange marmalade, something like that. That's good. If you weren't watching the other night, during the blizzard, this is what I made. So the orange marmalade in about an equal volume, well, maybe 2 to 1 with water, just to loosen it up a little bit. Stir it over the plate so it doesn't get everywhere. So I got 2.5 tablespoons worth of orange and water mixed. Got my soy here. Oops, wrong one. I'm using light soy here. Oh, and I'm out of light soy. I'm cleaning out the whole pantry. That was hardly any light soy at all. I'm going to have to switch. I'm going to have to use dark soy. Normally I use light soy, but I'm switching to dark soy here, and I'm just going to draw about that much. Doesn't take much at all. And the exact same story with my toasted sesame oil. Do not go nuts with this. A little tiny bit. That's maybe a teaspoon. I'm going to put a little bit more on at the finish. And now, stir to combine and fry. And that rice is picking up all of that oil. I made sure that the reason I let that rice sit on top is I wanted to heat through. Cold rice won't absorb flavor as well as warm rice, so before I started, I wanted to heat it up, and just doing it on top of the vegetables is the easiest way. You saw it took, what, a minute or two at most, just to warm the rice through before you stir it in to pick up the flavor. It helps too that I was putting the flavor on top from the rice from the top down rather than the bottom up. Now I'm going to really knock my heat down just so I don't scorch, and a little tiny bit of water on here for the same reason. For rice, you do not need to make a slurry with cornstarch like you would for a lot of the other Asian sauces. We're not making gongbao. We're not doing anything along those lines. This is just a real simple thing. And so I want to get in the middle. And now I want to take just a tiny little bit of oil there, and my egg from a happy chicken. Get that egg fried in there and work it in. And I'm going to go ahead and put in my leftover sprouts because they'll be good in there. Absolutely whatever you got laying around will work here. And we're done, pretty much. Just going to feed it through all the way. Probably should have used a little bit bigger pan, but this is what would fit on camera. And there you go. Vegetarian fried rice. I guess it would be vegan if you left the egg out, eh? I don't think there's any animal products in. Well, you might want to check your soy. There might be. Well, no, it's soybean. Soy. No, I guess it would be vegan if you didn't add the egg. I want to just check for seasoning real quick. Do just the tiniest little extra bit of soy here. Just needs a little tiny bit more salt. I think that bottle's almost empty too. It's time for a trip to Chinatown. I wish you guys could sponsor me with ingredients instead of like donating money or watching ads or anything. I wish you could just mail me what you wanted me to cook with. That would be kind of fun. Send me a random box of ingredients and I'll figure out what to make with it. Of course, that still wouldn't solve that whole taste-o-vision or smell-o-vision issue that we've got. And now, just because I like it so much, I'm going to again do a tiny little bit of toasted sesame oil, but now this sesame oil will have a lot more flavor because I'm not going to cook it at all. So I'm just going to go like that. Just that tiny little bit of fresh. It really does make a difference because the flavor in toasted sesame oil cooks out. It doesn't cook out. It changes and really diminishes when you get heat on it. So 60 seconds of cooking toasted sesame oil and you've lost a lot of the flavor, changed a lot of the flavor. Doesn't mean you shouldn't cook with it. Just use a bit for cooking and a bit for finishing. And that, my friends, is how you make fried rice with whatever's left over in the fridge. I think that'll do it for this live stream, which I hope you guys catch up on. I know that they store them and put them onto the channel, so you guys go back and reference and see what craziness I've done. And as I get better at them, I will probably start scheduling them. Had a really good time with 2 or 3 folks on Friday evening right around dinner time, and if that works for you guys as a time, I'm trying to pick a time slot that makes sense for people. I know people are getting home and cooking. I don't want to cook while they're trying to cook, but I also have 4 time zones to deal with. I'm all the way over in Atlantic time, so I'm an hour ahead of even New York. So if I'm trying to cook for somebody on the West Coast, you know, right now it's dinner time there. So anyway, if you guys have some suggestions for what time slot would be a good regular spot, leave me a comment down below. Leave me any kind of comments you've got, if you've got any questions. As always, I do appreciate you watching and liking and thumbs up and tweety, spacey, booking and all that other social media stuff. Share it out to the people that you know that you think might like this. Because I'm out here doing it for you, one way or the other. Whether you watch or not, I'm still going to turn the camera on. So until next time, I'm Mr. Spork. These are Mr. Spork's hands, and it is fried rice Sunday night for me. Thanks so much. Cheers. Delicious.